One day, I was walking to school and saw what looked like a video game controller fall in the middle of the road. It had a part that could be gripped, and various buttons were placed on it. It looked like a PS4 controller, but it was more distorted and looked like something an alien in a science fiction movie would use. If it was a console controller, it was of a model I didn't know. I picked up the controller. It was heavy, in my hand. I pressed the buttons, at random. I heard a buzzing sound, and a green light came on. It seemed that the controller was activated. I wondered what kind of controller it was. As I was thinking about this and operating the directional keys, I heard a loud clank. I turned around and saw a male student from the same high school riding with me. When I turned around, I saw a male student from the same high school riding a bicycle, and he had hit the guardrail with all his might. The boy started pedaling his bicycle, without a care. He passed me, dizzy and meandering like a drunk driver. At that moment, I noticed a strange coincidence. I felt as if the movements of the boys were linked to the controller I was operating at random. When I moved the controller's directional stick to the right, the boys moved to the right, and when I moved it to the left, they moved to the left. I quickly removed my hand from the controller. Then the boy stopped pedaling his bike. Of course, if he did not pedal, he could not go forward. The bicycle lost its balance and fell on its side. The boy seemed to have been hit in the face, and his face was covered with blood. "Are you okay?" I ran to the fallen student. His eyes were vacant. He looked pretty bad. I thought it might be better to call an ambulance. But I was concerned about what had just happened. If I operate the controller now, and the boy moves, it means that this controller is a controller that can control the movement of this boy. I moved the controller around. Then, the boy suddenly stood up and started running, screaming. Then he ran out into the street, where cars were passing by. There was a dull thud, and the boy was hit by the truck. A pool of blood spread on the ground. Someone screamed. It seemed that this controller was still controlling the boy's movements. But it wasn't supposed to be like this. Did I kill him? That's impossible. I got scared, and was about to throw the controller away. But then I thought back. What if other people could also use this controller? What if I had accidentally obtained tremendous power? I quietly put the controller in my bag, and left the place with a nonchalant look on my face. After that, I carefully experimented with various experiments, and came to understand various things. The controller has a sensor attached to it. And when you point the controller at the sensor, and activate it, you can control a person who is facing the sensor. The range of the sensor is approximately 70 meters. Unless the controller is turned off, that person's operation will not be deactivated. If left unchecked, the person will remain frozen in a dead-like state for a long time. The controls are similar to those of other video game consoles. Use the left stick to move. Pressing the buttons performs various actions. The action that is triggered is different for each person. By combining the buttons and the right stick, you can move the person's limbs freely to some extent. It is not possible to make them talk to each other. The person being controlled by the controller has no memory of the time. In order to figure all this out, it was necessary to conduct experiments on a number of people. Some people were injured, but I haven't made as big a mistake as I did when I first picked it up. The boy at that time eventually died. It's not that I didn't feel remorse in my conscience, but it was more the excitement of acquiring an unknown power. Secret power with this controller, I would soon be able to control anyone I wanted. I felt like I was getting closer to God. On the day, in a deserted wooded area, he was practicing by manipulating his classmates. My current goal is to be able to fight, considering the many troubles I might encounter in the future. I felt it was a must to master the fighting maneuver. Once, I took on a group of guys hanging out in an arcade, controlling a school punk, but I was no match for them. When you are watching the situation, the controller operation inevitably takes a back seat. It is hard to match the command speed of the human brain, which has free will. So, I repeatedly practiced until I could make various fighting movements with intuitive operations. Thanks to the repetitive practice, I was able to make the robot do almost all the movements I wanted. Next week, I will finally be able to put them into practice. With that in mind, I began to prepare to leave. I released the boys in a wooded area, and they went home, wondering why they were in such a place. As I was walking back to my bike, which I had left in an inconspicuous place, I slipped and fell. In my fall, I accidentally activated the controller. The sensor was facing me. My body stopped moving like a stone. I've done it. That's the last thing I remember thinking.